The book screamed before she even touched it. It wasn't a scream anyone else could hear, only Ilara, standing alone in the ancient library's dust-soaked shadows. The sound slithered into her bones, low and agonizing, like a voice dragged across broken glass. Her hand froze inches above the cracked leather cover. The book sat on the highest shelf, cloaked in spiderwebs, bound by iron clasps that looked centuries old. No title, no author, only a symbol burned into its skin, a single staring eye. Ilara wasn't supposed to be here. The library had been locked for 50 years after the Great Fire that swallowed half the town. No one survived that night except the librarian, who vanished without a trace. People whispered the place was cursed, but Ilara didn't believe in curses. She believed in answers. And the answers, her grandmother's diary had insisted, lay in the book with the eye. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it free. Dust rained down like ash. The moment it left the shelf, the room seemed to inhale sharply. Candles flared, shadows deepened, and the floor beneath her groaned like something had awakened. Ilara! Her name floated through the air, rasping yet intimate. She spun around, no one. Just shelves of rotting books staring down at her like silent witnesses. She almost put it back. Almost. But curiosity is a hunger that does not starve quietly. She carried it to the oak desk in the center of the room, set it down and brushed away the webs. The iron clasps unlatched by themselves with a dry, metallic sigh. The book opened. The first page was blank. Then before her eyes, ink bled through the parchment, forming jagged lines of text in a language she did not know, yet somehow understood. To read is to awaken. To awaken is to bind. And once bound, you are never free. Her breath caught. The letters glowed faintly, pulsing like veins. Then came the sound, soft at first, like a whisper pressed against her ear. A dozen voices. Then 100, chanting, pleading, screaming. She tried to slam the book shut, but her hands wouldn't obey. The pages turned on their own, faster and faster, until they stopped on an illustration, a door, carved with the same staring eye. And from the door's crack, a pale, skeletal hand reached outward. The library lights flickered. The air grew heavy, suffocating. Ilara! The voice hissed again, this time from behind her. She turned, and the door from the page was standing in the library. The door wasn't real. It couldn't be. Yet there it stood, tall, black, and ancient, etched with the same single, unblinking eye from the book. It pulsed faintly as if it were alive. The wooden surface seemed to breathe in and out like lungs struggling to inhale. Ilara's heartbeat hammered so loudly she swore the entire library could hear it. She stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a fallen chair, but her eyes never left the door. The book still lay open on the desk, its pages trembling as though caught in a storm that wasn't there. The illustration of the door had vanished, replaced now with a reflection of her. She looked down and saw herself in the ink, but her mirrored self was smiling, while she was not. "No," she whispered, her throat dry. "This isn't real." The air turned colder. Breath misted in front of her lips. From the door's edges, black smoke leaked out, snaking across the library floor like searching fingers. The smell of burnt paper and iron filled the room. Then came the knock. A single hollow thud. It echoed through the library, shaking dust from the shelves. Ilara froze. Another thud. Louder, closer. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet refused. The knock became a pounding, each strike shaking the oak desk. The voices inside the book grew louder, overlapping until they were unbearable. Some cried for help. Some demanded blood. Others whispered her name over and over. And then, silence. The eye carved into the door rolled and blinked. "Ilara!" It rasped, the voice low and jagged. "Open the door." Her knees nearly gave out. She shook her head violently, clutching her grandmother's diary against her chest. "No, this is wrong. I shouldn't be here." But even as she spoke, her hand reached forward. Not willingly. Not by choice. Something unseen tugged at her, pulling her closer, like invisible strings tied around her wrist. Her fingers grazed the handle, ice-cold metal that burned her skin, and in that instant a memory returned. Her grandmother's warning, written in the diary's final entry. "The book is a snare, the door a prison. If you see it, turn away. For what lies beyond wears the skin of truth but feeds on the soul of the curious." Ilara gasped and yanked her hand back, clutching her burned wrist. The door shuddered violently as though furious. The eye glared at her, blood-red veins spreading through its iris. The book's pages flipped again, slamming, to a stop on a single line written in crimson ink. If not opened, it will come through. The pounding began again, louder, harder. The wood splintered. And Alara realized with a sinking horror, she wasn't the one opening the door. The door was opening itself. The door cracked open with a groan that rattled the entire library. Alara pressed herself against the shelves, her breath sharp and shallow. The black smoke poured in thicker now, swallowing the light of the candles one by one. It slithered across the floor, curling up her ankles like chains. The gap widened. A skeletal hand emerged first, its skin stretched tight and gray, fingers tipped with nails like broken glass. The hand groped at the air before clutching the oak desk and pulling. Then slowly the figure stepped through. It was tall, too tall to belong in the world she knew. Its head brushed the ceiling beams, its body bent at impossible angles, as though it had been forced into the shape of a man, but never truly belonged to one. Where its face should have been, there was only another eye. Massive, unblinking, bloodshot, veins webbed across its surface. And when it looked at her, Alara felt as though her very thoughts were being scraped raw. She tried to scream, but the sound died in her throat. The book on the desk snapped shut. The voices silenced. The only sound left was the monster's slow, wet breathing. Alara! The voice was not one, it was thousands. Each syllable echoed with the agony of countless throats. It knew her name. It had always known her name. Her burned wrist throbbed. She clutched it, but when she looked down, she realized the mark wasn't just a burn. It was an imprint. The same staring eye etched into her skin like a brand. The creature bent closer, its enormous eye inches from her face. She could see herself reflected inside it, not once, but in endless reflections, stretching back into infinity. You opened the book, it hissed. Now you are ours. With sudden, desperate courage, Alara shoved against the shelves. Dozens of books cascaded down, striking the creature's twisted frame. It staggered, but only slightly. Its laughter, if that's what it was, echoed like a church bell tolling at midnight. She darted toward the far end of the library. The exit was still sealed, the heavy iron doors chained from the inside. Her hands fumbled at the lock, but the chains wouldn't budge. Behind her, the creature dragged its body closer, its elongated limbs scraping against the floorboards, leaving grooves like claw marks. Alara! It was right behind her now. She spun around, back pressed against the chained doors. Her chest heaved with terror. The creature raised its hand, and the chains binding the library doors snapped open, not by her strength, but by its, and beyond the doors wasn't the street outside. It was darkness, endless rolling darkness filled with countless blinking eyes. The library was gone, and she realized she was no longer in her world at all. Alara stumbled backward into the void. The chains clattered shut behind her, sealing off the library forever. When she turned, the creature was gone. Or rather, it wasn't needed anymore. For she had entered its world. The air was thick and damp, heavy like wet cloth pressed against her face. Beneath her feet stretched ground that wasn't ground at all. It was soft, almost fleshy, pulsing faintly as though she were walking on the skin of something alive. Each step released a faint groan beneath her shoes. And everywhere, eyes. They floated in the air, enormous and small, blinking slowly, unblinking, weeping black tears. Some stared directly at her. Others rolled back into nothingness. 100 eyes. 1,000. A sea of them, suspended in the void like stars in a nightmare sky. She clutched her grandmother's diary to her chest like a lifeline, though its pages fluttered wildly, as if trying to escape her grip. Alara! The voice came again, not from one place this time, but from everywhere. Each eye whispered her name, overlapping in a chorus that made her knees tremble. Her branded wrist burned hotter, the eye mark glowing faintly, and suddenly she understood. The mark wasn't just a curse. It was a tether. They hadn't pulled her here by accident. She had been chosen. Her grandmother's words echoed in her skull. What lies beyond wears the skin of truth, but feeds on the soul of the curious. And then she saw them. People, dozens of them, or what was left of them. They wandered the void in broken circles, faces blank, eyes missing. Their movements were jerky, puppet-like, as though strings guided their every step. They murmured faintly, fragments of language lost to time. One of them brushed past her. His mouth opened, stretched wider than humanly possible, and whispered in a cracked voice, "Run!" Her pulse spiked. She bolted, weaving between the eyeless husks. The ground quivered, rippling under her steps. The sky of eyes followed her, their gazes burning into her skull. Then ahead she saw it, a door. Unlike the others, this one was wooden, plain, fragile-looking. And it glowed faintly golden, the only light in the endless darkness. Hope surged through her chest. She sprinted, but the husks noticed. Their heads snapped toward her, mouths unhinging in silent screams. They reached out, clawing the air with skeletal fingers. The void itself seemed to shift, the path stretching longer the closer she ran. Still she pushed on, the golden door almost within reach. Her hand stretched forward, and just as her fingers grazed the handle, the ground beneath her split open. From the crack, a colossal eye rose, its lid tearing the earth like a wound. It opened wide, glowing with blinding light, and in that instant the door shattered to ash. The golden door crumbled into dust between her fingers. Ilara screamed, but the void swallowed the sound whole. The colossal eye that had torn through the ground fixed on her, its pupil contracting like a black sun. Light poured out, flooding the darkness until every wandering husk was illuminated, frozen. Mid-step, their eyeless faces tilted skyward as though worshipping the beast. Her branded wrist throbbed like fire. She fell to her knees, clutching the mark, but the burning only intensified. And then she saw it. The eye on her wrist wasn't just glowing. It was opening. From her skin, a tiny pupil blinked up at her. "No," she gasped, clawing at it, desperate to tear it away. But the more she fought, the wider it opened, until her own hand no longer felt like her own. The voices returned, louder, closer, screaming through her skull. "You are bound. You are ours. You opened the book. Now you are the page." The husks moved again, circling her. Their mouths gaped, and from within, pages of parchment spilled out, fluttering across the fleshy ground. Each page bore the same crimson script, but when she looked closer, her blood ran cold. They were names. Thousands of names. Each husk was a reader who had once opened the book. Each had been claimed. Each had been rewritten, and now it was her turn. The colossal eye blinked once, and the ground beneath her split wide. Pages shot upward, wrapping around her like chains. She screamed and tore at them, but they clung to her skin, melting into it, replacing her flesh with ink. Her hands turned pale and parchment thin, veins transforming into jagged lines of script. Her grandmother's diary fell open beside her. Its last page filled itself with fresh words written in her own blood. Ilara, bound to the book, keeper of the door. Her reflection appeared once more, not in glass, not in water, but in the parchment itself. And this time the smiling version of her stepped free, while she was dragged inward, imprisoned within the page. Her body collapsed into the book with a final snap. The chains clanged shut around the library once more, and on the shelf in the highest corner of that dust-soaked room, the book with the eye waited, silent, patient, until someone else curious enough would open it and read. The book may have closed, but the story isn't over. If you felt the shadows crawling closer while watching, imagine what awaits in the next tale. So don't walk away just yet. Subscribe now, ring the bell, and join me where curiosity always comes with a price. Because remember, the moment you click away, the eyes are still watching.